Hi, friends. I woke up with a lot of clarity on the feminine creative flow based on a couple of recent conversations with different people. It's very interesting because the society that we have been living until now has been based on the masculine model. That's why we call it the patriarchy, which is linear, outward, and there is this kind of outline for your life that you go to school and then you go to college, you graduate, you get a job, you get married, you have children, um, you build on your career, you get a house and the cars. And then at one point, you get to the pinnacle of your career. And then, hopefully, if you make it like there, and then you this actually is really big, and then you retire and enjoy life. So there is this delayed gratification of when you're going to enjoy life, because for the most part you have to hustle. And if we think about India, um, and I don't know if it's true for all of India, but I remember when I was reading more about spirituality, and it said how in India, where actually there is a focus on spirituality, which here you retire and you're supposed to vegetate and decay instead of getting closer to spirit. But in India, where people have more of an awareness, um, when a man has raised a family, um, he goes into the forest, woods, the cave, and devotes himself to God because he has accomplished his earthly duties, so to say. And that's when he can devote more time to spirituality and creating a connection with the divine. And when we look at this model, everything is very disassociated and it's not really combined, because it's almost like you have to hustle, hustle, hustle and be in the physical world, and there's no room for spirituality until maybe possibly the latter part of your life, if you do gain awareness of spirituality at all. And the physical and the mental is what the focus is more on, which are masculine qualities, whereas the emotional and the spiritual are somehow completely gone, non existent out of this life model based on masculine energy. And no wonder we're so disconnected and people are so anxious and confused. First, because it's a time of transition where the feminine is rising and we're remembering how to integrate that energy inside of ourselves, which has always been inside of ourselves. But because it has been so heavily suppressed for so many years and very outwardly attacked, consider witch trials, it's very hard to bring it out just because the suppression has been so heavy and it's like very deep down inside of ourselves in what we call the subconscious, which is my life from last night. So now there are a lot of us that realize how this is our life force and we cannot suppress it and deny it, and it's very vital for our proper functioning as whole and complete human beings. Good morning, Joe, and hi, Amelia. Thanks for joining in. So with the feminine rising, we're confused because we realized the importance, and during the feminist movement, women realized, okay, we need to have some kind of power and say into things as well. But because we have forgotten what feminine power looks like, we try to appropriate masculine power as feminine power. Which is normal because, when we're remembering things that have been uh, suppressed in the subconscious for that long, it's not like it's the easiest of processes. Uh, but where it gets really interesting is when we get deeper into feminine energy and understand that it's deeply linked to the emotions, intuition, spirituality, the upper chakras, and expression, self expression. And the reason we're drawn to certain artists that seem to live it really well is because we feel that their life is somehow fuller and more complete and more alive. But the screen is black because I think better in the dark. And it symbolizes feminine energy, which is the one which is kind of like the topic of my life. Um, so when uh, we start to research it, we realize we need to go really, really into deep and excavate a lot of suppressed emotions and learn how all of these things correlate, and then be able to not banish masculine energy and hate it for suppressing the feminine for so long, but realize that this has been the way things were supposed to go. But once we integrate the feminine, we need to unite it with the masculine. And what that would look like in the creative process, which the creative process is a symbol of how we create anything since we're creative beings. So it doesn't pertain just to art, but it's wholly applicable to life. The current creative process is have a goal. Let's say initially is go to school and then go to college. Then know the steps to the accomplishment of that goal, which a lot of people before you have already outlined, and then fit yourself into that mold and grind and persevere until the accomplishment of the goal. And it's gonna be hard, and it's gonna be a lot of like huffing and puffing and sweating, and give it all you got. And some people won't make it, but we have to be in that grind, and we're competing with each other, and we're comparing to one another and policing each other. No, you have to do it like this. No, you don't have the right step. Okay, and going for the external validation and external degrees and accolades and accomplishments, because this is the thing that is very much honored, celebrated, and appreciated in our lives. And the value of a person comes from what they have achieved externally. How does their body look? Do they work out? Are they, like tough, buff, or slim and uh, endowed in whichever area you want to appropriate it? Uh, what kind of degrees do they have? What kind of social status do they have? How much money do they make? What kind of home they have? What kind of car they drive? Who do they know in terms of important people? Of what kind of work they have produced, if it's creative work, and how many books they have written. So this is the world that we have been existing in, honoring the masculine, the mind, the intelligence of the mind. Shh. Be quiet for a sec. My cat is hungry. Um, Whereas the feminine model is, I'm talking about the topic of my life and live. Feminine creative energy and the uniting of the feminine and masculine. The feminine process of creation is completely different. And the feminine qualities are rest, relax, intuition. In order to get intuitive hints, you kind of have to completely detach from the material world and rest, relax, go deeper into yourself, process emotions. So when we introduce the spiritual and the emotional to the physical and the mental, it becomes really interesting because let's say if the goal is, well, the goal, get an education, completely can be dissolved because the goal is more what is the desire that comes from inside of you. And if the desire is to know about the natural life, or the desire is to be an artist, maybe you don't have to go and get a degree in art and have somebody else teach you how to do it. But you just say, I want to be an artist, and you trust Spirit, which is the greatest artist of all, to show you what kind of artist you need to be and how to be an artist. And basically, you formulate the goal with your conscious mind. I want to be an artist. In the traditional model, you have to go to school and you have to complete this training that somebody else outlined. When we introduce the feminine to the mix, the school is spirit. And you give the request directly to spirit, God, universal intelligence, whatever you want to call it, which has created your body, the whole universe, the earth, and everything else. So, who better teach you how to be an artist than spirit? Or how to be anything else for that matter, or how to know anything else? So, when you give the request to spirit instead of going to art school and wondering how you're going to pay your student debt after that, spirit gives you intuitive nudges. And to receive those intuitive nudges, because you already decided, asked, which are the masculine qualities, you simply embody the feeling of being an artist and begin to create whatever your medium is. Let's say you're a musician. Um, you start to play music, and it will help you know to uh, learn a musical instrument. But let's say you start to practice every day, and uh, when you start to practice every day, you people are so funny. Well, use whatever your name is that this is the whole point of the feminine process, that it's not one sentence, that it's not this one linear direct thing, that it's like A to B. And it's a process, it's a flow. It's so much more complex and complicated, and it cannot be summed up. It needs to be allowed to unfold. So when you begin to unfold, you start to practice, and let's say you get this inner inspiration, I want to be in nature. And you go in nature and you observe. And from nature, you listen to the bird songs. And all of a sudden, some melody comes into your mind. And if you have mastered your instrument enough, you're able to put this melody into a song. And all of a sudden, the song sounds like incredible. And you put it out there, and people are like, wow, I really dig that vibe. Why? Because the vibe is natural, because the vibe came from nature. And you processed it through your organism and you embodied it and you really deeply felt it in your senses. And then using your skill and talent, you added your take on it and you produced something natural, which is a co creation with nature and source. And you received the inspiration, which is, like you relaxed, received. That's the part of surrender. And then again, you went into masculine energy of the actual, um, embodiment of this music. You had to play it and write it and let's say produce it, record it, and put it into the world. And then we see how the creative process when we embody the masculine and the feminine, actually has four parts. First, inside of ourselves, we come with the desire to accomplish something or be something. And when we ask for it, this is, the masculine energy deciding out of all of these things, this is what I want, and focusing on one thing. And then we can visualize it or embody it by feeling the feeling of what it would be like to have that thing, which we're moving into the feminine, the feeling, and then relaxing, surrendering, again, feminine qualities, and be open to receive. And once we receive the inspiration, it moves us to inspired action. And then we're called to take inspired action in the physical, again, which is the masculine energy, the outward, the physical, the drive, the accomplishment, the following through. And when we take the action in the physical, let's say go out in nature, we move into feminine again. Okay, I'm just going to be present and relax and receive. And then we listen to the bird song, we receive it, and we go into masculine again. Okay, now I'm going to try to play the song that I'm feeling inside of myself and then put it out there and promote it and market it. And women have always been into that creative process and the naturalness and the flow of it. But without the masculine energy, we create things, but we don't have that drive to really promote them and push them out there. And let's say the creation could be you create a beautiful meal for your family. It gets eaten. You don't get credit for it. You create a garden, or you create quilt or something like that, and you give it to your relative because there isn't that drive for acknowledgement and accolades and um, outward recognition and status, and it's just creation for creation's sake. So it's really interesting now how men need to, or people that predominantly operate in masculine energy, are needing to learn that it's not all about chasing and hustle and drive, but you need to learn to rest, relax, and receive in order for the creation process to be easy, effortless, and flow. And women need to learn that it's not just about resting, relaxing, and receiving, but when you're receiving all these poems or creating photographs or music, you also need to move into the outward and have a little bit more of an organized focus and goal. And let's say put those poems into a book and get it published, and put those songs into an album and follow through and release it into the world. So it's this beautiful coming together of the two energies inside each one of us. And we realize that when we live like that, life becomes this effortless flow and creation becomes this effortless flow. And we are whole and complete and fully alive because we are in the body, in the senses, which give us the information that we need. And we're not rejecting any parts of ourselves. We're not denying our emotions and suppressing them. We realize that all emotions are important for our learning and going deeper inside of ourselves. And emotions are a way to inform us what do we like, what don't we like, what do we want to go deeper into, what feels like, oh yes, this is the thing, and what feels like, No, this actually is kind of like taking me away from where I want to go. So, emotions are the guidance system to the manifestation of the creation. And through embodying the emotions of the thing that we want to create beforehand, we actually integrate it. And it's much easier to be led to it through intuition and inspired action. And our intuition sharpens when we spend time in nature, things that are natural, when we're resting, relaxing, and simply receiving from source, which is the spiritual component, which has been also widely neglected. And it's the feminine um, piece of creation which we're incorporating. So this topic is really deep, actually, and it's understandable that a lot of people are not understanding it. And that is precisely the idea. It's not being lost, it's actually enjoying the journey. And if you're not familiar with the places I have been, you will be completely lost. But for the ones that have actually been using this process or have gotten to the parts of it, they will recognize, okay, I've been there and I got lost here, and I've been there and I got lost here. And being lost is actually a very essential part to the creative process because if we're employing the mind for everything, we'll forever be trapped in its confines. But venturing past the mind and getting into the unknown, into the spiritual and emotional territories of the unconscious, is the adventure that we take that is enjoyable and allows this creation process to be complete and makes it unique for all of us. Because when we source from the unconscious, from the realm of the spiritual and emotional, the mystical and the mysterious, then our answer that we get is going to be completely unique just for us. And that's why no two authentic creations can ever be the same, because by going into the emotional and spiritual and the unconscious and the unknown and walking into the dark, you get only that which is for you, like tuned and fine tuned to you, and you collect like specific pieces which will make sense to no one else. And when you bring them back, they infuse your creation with that signature of authenticity that is based on your unique essence that you came with. And that's why the creations of the masters and the geniuses stand apart, and you can see that cohesive element that unites them and that cannot be replicated even if others try, because this is the signature of the soul. Thank you. Yes, yes, because your questions actually have been very much contributing to this chat, which again shows how I'm employing uh, both of my energies, the masculine and the feminine. And in real time, I can leave my train of thought, connect with your question, and then weave it into the unfoldment of the idea that I want to create. And if I was solely in masculine energy, I would have ignored your question or dismissed it completely, which that's where my brain wanted to go initially. But then I allowed it and I was like, okay, how can this question unite into what I'm speaking and contribute to it? And that led to the next part, which means that we're largely in sync. And when you employ the creation process like that, you realize that you're tapping into it. You have never been excluded from it, because this is the process that Creator, Infinite Intelligence, God uses for everything. And we are part of that aliveness and of that creation, which is like a river flowing. And when we feel blocked, we're essentially clinging and grasping to the familiar, and not being open to getting lost and being afraid of getting lost, and being afraid to surrender to the current of the river that is going to take us exactly where we need to be, but staying in the mind, in the fear, in the resistance. And when we allow the resistance to dissolve and let go of that clinging and grasping and surrender and decide I'm actually going to enjoy the process of the unknown, then it really uh, makes the whole thing so much more interesting and fun. And you enjoy getting continuously lost and found and lost and found. And uh, every time you take that journey, you're enriched and becoming more alive, and your creativity gets more and more complex, which is actually simple. And all opposites unite because you have united all seeming opposites inside of yourself, and you're functioning as a whole being, which makes you holy. And you have found yourself and your place in the family of all things because you have returned to your original authentic essence, and you're fully embodying your soul in the physical, and you have achieved what I call enlightened embodiment, and you have become one with life and all there is.